In early 1974, Genesis booked studio time in London with a dangerous idea. Not just a new album, a double album, a full narrative, a surreal story. A project so ambitious it would stretch the limits of vinyl, patience, and friendship. They called it The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. At the time, Genesis were riding their highest creative wave. Selling England by the pound had reached the UK top 5. Their audience was growing. Their label expected a follow-up within the year. But what Genesis planned next wasn't safe, it wasn't commercial, and it certainly wasn't simple. Peter Gabriel arrived with a story about a Puerto Rican street kid named Rael wandering through a nightmarish New York dreamscape. He later explained, "It's more a plot album than a concept album. The rest of the band agreed to build the music around Gabriel's narrative. But very quickly, the process became something else entirely. Mike Rutherford would later admit, "We were strong writers and we pasted what we had together like a collage." That collage began forming in the studio, piece by piece, under rising pressure. By mid-1974, Genesis was spending 10 to 12 hours a day recording. Weeks blurred into months. The studio clock was always running. The tour was already booked. The album had to be delivered on time. And the material kept expanding. Long instrumental passages, short interludes, half-written songs, music built before lyrics arrived, lyrics arriving after the music was recorded. Tony Banks later said, "Nobody knew what they were doing anymore. Ideas were created faster than they could be finished. Some tracks evolved, some stalled, some were abandoned mid-session. And by the end, there was no doubt. Genesis had recorded more music than fit on the final album. The finished record ran 94 minutes, nearly the absolute limit of what a double vinyl could physically hold without severe loss of audio quality. Anything more simply could not be pressed. And that overflow, that excess, is where the legend begins. Years later, Tony Banks gave an interview about the Genesis archive tapes. He casually remarked, "I think others had tapes too, but they lost them." He was referring to early demo reels, rehearsal recordings, work tapes, rough ideas, not a secret finished album, but enough loose ends to ignite imaginations. Because in the 1980s, something else happened. Genesis fanzines began circulating lists of unreleased Lamb tracks. Tape traders sold bootlegs labeled Lost Lamb Sessions. Handwritten track lists passed from fan to fan, sometimes featuring song titles never confirmed by the band.
Green dolls at less than extortionate prices. And as the...
With each retelling, the rumor grew. Some fans claimed Genesis had recorded enough material for a second double album. Others insisted it was mixed, shelved, or erased. A lost record hidden in the vaults of a London studio. The myth of the lost Genesis album was born. But the band themselves never confirmed it. Tony Banks addressed it directly. The recordings are mostly unreleased demo material. Some songs were left out because they were just very poor. Not hidden masterpieces. not suppressed genius, just unfinished ideas. So why did the rumors survive? Because the Lamb sessions weren't just productive, they were emotionally brutal. Peter Gabriel worked separately from the band, writing lyrics alone.
Looks like clockwork, their hands marked out the time. Empty.
Sometimes pages arrived minutes before recording. Sometimes the band built music for scenes they didn't fully understand. Gabriel later described the experience as, "It was a journey into the soul, who the fuck knows?" The others were less poetic. They were tired, frustrated, and increasingly distant. While the band struggled in the studio, Gabriel was also exploring film projects outside Genesis. He was thinking beyond the group, planning what came next. Inside the studio, communication thinned. Decisions slowed. Patience eroded. By late 1974, the album had to be mixed quickly to meet the manufacturing deadline. Some tracks were mixed in hours. The band later admitted they weren't satisfied with the sound, but the tapes were sent for pressing anyway. The record was finished, but the band was fractured. Then came the tour. The Lamb live show was theatrical and daring. Costumes, masks, slide projections, story sequences between songs. Some audiences were mesmerized. Others were confused. In early shows, objects were thrown at the stage. Shouts interrupted performances. Behind the curtain, the band barely spoke. Mike Rutherford later said, "We never hugged in those days. It was a funny feeling." By the end of the North American tour in 1975, Peter Gabriel quietly told management he was leaving Genesis. The album that was meant to redefine the band had nearly ended it. And when something ends that dramatically, stories grow in the silence afterward. Years passed. Archive box sets were released. Demo recordings surfaced. Alternate versions appeared. Fans heard unfamiliar fragments and thought, "Here it is, proof." But the reality was simpler.
Wrapped up in some powdered wool, I guess I'm losing touch. Don't.
What exists today are rehearsal tapes, early demos, studio chatter, alternate takes, ideas abandoned before completion, fascinating pieces of history, but not a finished lost album, not a hidden second Lamb, not a mastered record waiting in a vault. A contemporary critic described The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway as a culmination of past elements injected with present abilities and future directions. And that's exactly what it was. Everything Genesis had been, everything they were becoming, and everything that nearly tore them apart. So, did a lost Genesis album exist? Not in the literal sense, but something was lost. Clarity, unity, energy, and a simple story of how the record was made. In that confusion, fans filled the gaps. Rumors hardened into belief. Belief became legend. Not because a secret album was hidden away, but because the sessions were so overloaded, so exhausting, so unfinished in spirit, that the truth itself felt incomplete. And in that space, between what was recorded and what could have been, the myth of the lost Genesis album was born, not on tape, but in memory. And there, it still lives.